I've been crocheting for about 15 years, and here are some things I wish I knew when I was younger. 1. Make sure you weave in your ends as you go, and weave them in fully. I don't mean just tying them together and snipping the ends, but take the time to actually weave your ends in. When you're starting off, it might seem like a good idea to just tuck them in, just tie them, just crochet over them, but when your piece falls apart from the center, you're gonna wish you actually wove those ends in. Secondly, on that note, if you're using a magic ring, make sure you secure that magic ring. There have been so many times that I made a granny square starting with a magic ring and didn't realize I needed to actually secure it, and the entire granny square falls apart from the center. And a little tip, if you don't love using a magic ring, there are other options. You can chain 3 and slip stitch, but there are other ways to start without using a magic ring if that's not your thing. Number 3, if you're making clothing, use cotton if you're able to. I know it's not accessible to everyone and it is a little bit more pricey than acrylic, but if you're making clothing that you actually want to be able to wear, you're gonna want to use cotton so that it's not extremely heavy. Once you start using cotton for clothing, you will never go back to acrylic, trust me. Next, use your stitch markers. If I'm working on just a row, I will use stitch markers to mark the beginning and the end of the row. And if I'm working in a round, I'll use a stitch marker to mark the end of the round so I don't lose track of where I am. You can also use stitch markers to make sure that your piece doesn't come undone if you're in the middle of it. So say you're working on a row but you need to stop and set it down, put a stitch marker into the top loop and now your piece can't come undone when it's just sitting there. If you're making amigurumi, make sure you stuff it a lot more than you think it needs it. You can always fit in so much more in there, and over time the stuffing is going to start compressing and you don't want the piece to get all weird and floppy. For example, this is one of the first stuffies I ever made. She's in some rough shape, but the magic ring is starting to come undone. It is not dense at all. You see that? And the tails that I wove in, I did not weave them in properly. But finally, the last tip is just practice. Over time, it's gonna get easier and it's gonna look better. The best tip to learn how to crochet is just practice. Just keep doing it over and over again. If you wanna do different things, you can look up patterns for amigurumi, because then each round is a little bit different. If you like the repetitiveness, do some granny squares because you get to do the same thing over and over. But whichever method it is, just keep doing it again and again and it will get easier.